Beginning of change. Annie slowly opened her eyes before blinking at her surroundings. She seemed to be in something wooden. She tried to speak, but found that her mouth was bound by a rope. She tried to move her hands and feet but found that they were bound too. She looked up and saw the starry night sky and realized she was outside. What was going on? How did she get here? The last thing she remembered was arguing and muffled noises, followed by an explosion. And there was a man. She mistook him for her father, but who was he? Was he going to hurt her? Did she say anything that might jeopardize her mission? I need advice, she heard someone say in a rushed manner, followed by, I'm not going to hurt you. Just, why would you ask me? Why not Mikasa? You get along better with her, another voice reasoned. That sounded like Armin. Shit. That meant she was captive of the Survey Corps. Where were they taking her? How would she get out? As much as I am impressed by her motivation, Ackerman is only here for one reason, and that is to keep watch over Prime's pet, she heard the other person explain. She's not exactly one I can get solid advice from. Ackerman. Did he mean Mikasa? And who was Prime's pet? So, you ask me? Armin questioned. This was a mistake. I'm sorry, Armin apologized, you're not used to this. Annie heard the other person take a deep breath. Optimus said that I could leave this world once the coup is over. Leave this world? Annie thought. What did he mean by? Oh no. Whoever this person was isn't human. It's one of Optimus' kind, and someone who could travel between worlds. She had to leave and fast. She couldn't handle her own against Optimus, he nearly killed her. She knew nothing of the Titan that was talking with Armin right now. Wait, what about Bertholdt and Rainer? Did they engage Optimus? Did they engage this Titan? Where in the hell were they? And how strong was this Titan? So, why did you tell me about this? Armin asked. Because talking to the dwarf would be such a nice conversation, the Titan answered with sarcasm in his voice. I'm going to help set up the bomb, Armin said. Annie quickly closed her eyes and pretended she was unconscious, realizing the conversation was over. She grew scared as she felt someone touch her neck and check her pulse before letting her go. She waited a couple of seconds before opening her eyes and looking at the man. She couldn't see his face, but he was wearing all grey and had a sword and shield, clearly ready for combat. There was nothing she could do now. The only thing that she could do was wait for an opening in order to escape. Eren could still hear himself scream at the memory of him eating his father. Rod and Historia both removed their hands from his back. Meanwhile, Historia stumbled back and clutched her head as she began to remember the lost memories of her sister. How could I have forgotten? Historia questioned as she began to cry. She taught me how to read and write. She made sure I was never alone. How did I forget? You must have met Frida, Rod realized, a woman with black hair. She is your half-sister. She must have been concerned for you, but she also seemed to have wiped your memories in order to protect you. Wipe my memories? Historia asked. Rod nodded his head. Seems coming into contact with Eren might have helped you remember. Hey, Father, Historia began, where is Frida? She was always there for me, and I would like to thank her for what she did for me. Rod looked at Historia with sadness before pulling her into a hug. I used to have 5 children, but they're all gone now. Frida is dead, and it is because of Eren's father, Grisha Jiga. He came in here, and Frida fought him using her power, but she was too inexperienced. Grisha ate her, thus stealing the power of the Titans from her. He then proceeded to kill all of my children and my wife. I was the only one who was able to make it out alive that day. Historia stared at Erin's back as she felt her hatred fester and grow. Who could do something so terrible? Erin felt their eyes on him as he tried to remain calm, but all this new information was getting to him. What was going to happen? Megatron watched from afar, prepared everything for their assault to the church. Megatron couldn't give them solid directions on where the church was, so they had to send the two children from the police to ask for directions. The former warlord then kept a trained eye on Amin as he discussed the shards the three of them took from the cave. Megatron knew nothing of Amin and what his motivations were, and he was the one that knew the full truth. Mikasa had an idea, but she had no interest in him. Her main objective is to protect Prime's pet and him. But what about Amin? What was his motivation? He thought he was a spineless coward who was trying to be bigger than what he actually was, but he underestimated his intellect by a lot. He barely talked to him, but with so little information he managed to piece everything together. Every fiber of his being was screaming to kill Amin or else he would tell everyone. But Megatron couldn't do that, at least not now. He had to figure out if Amin was true to his word. Megatron, come in, Optimus called through his comm. Link. Megatron sighed. What is it? The garrison regiment is planning to make their way towards your position in order to assist you in retrieving Erin and Historia, Optimus informed. That's not going to happen, Megatron explained. The Survey Corps intend to go immediately. They already sent 2 military policemen to ask for directions to the church. No. Megatron, tell them to wait. Optimus exclaimed. I blackmailed the dwarf and went on a mission behind their back to get Leonhardt. Megatron retorted, do you really think they are going to listen to me? They're going to get killed. Optimus retorted. There's not really much I can do, Megatron proclaimed, you just have to get here as soon as possible. Megatron, wait, but Megatron already turned off the comm. He was more concerned Amin's trustworthiness than Optimus. Wow, that is very weird to say. Megatron, answer. Optimus through the comm. As the garrison and Erwin were getting prepared to head for the church. Is there a problem, Optimus? Pixis asked as he walked up to the Titan. Megatron stated the Survey Corps will be heading towards the church alone to retrieve Erin and Historia, Optimus explained. That shouldn't be a problem, Pixis proclaimed, with someone as skilled as Megatron on your side, he should be able to retrieve them. But the Survey Corps numbers are few, Optimus retorted, how many of them are going to die before they retrieve them? How about this, you go on ahead and try to meet up with the Survey Corps, Pixis suggested, that way, the Survey Corps may have less causalities. Optimus merely nodded his head before transforming into his old mode and driving into Wall Cena. Pixis merely put his hands behind his back as Erwin walked up to him. How long until you're able to release the plan to retake Wall Maria? Pixis asked. I don't know, Erwin admitted, our numbers are so few. Do you think Optimus might go rogue in that situation considering your position? Pixis asked, because this does affect all of humanity. Erwin sighed. He says that he has people here he needs to protect. So I don't think he'll try to go rogue. However, I do think a main concern is bringing Megatron into the public eye. Oh right, Pixis remembered, he doesn't exactly scream friendly from the picture Mobility drew of him. We have no way of figuring how to bring him there without people asking questions, Erwin retorted. People will ask questions regardless of what you do with him, Pixis explained. They did the same thing with Optimus. They questioned if he was an ally. Now he is considered a beacon of hope for humanity along with Erin. When the time comes, we'll be able to figure out a solution. Berthold looked down at the shard in his hand as finished formulating his plan to get out of his cell and out of the walls. The Titan shifter hid the shard of the brick he had broken in the sleeve of his arm when he heard a door to the basement open. He got on the bed and had his back faced away from view as someone approached his cell. "Berthold, I have some food and water for you," a voice said. Berthold rolled over to see Hanji's assistant, Mobilit, with a tray of food and a cup of water. Berthold slowly got up while making sure the shard stayed in place before walking over to him. "Let me take a look at your arm," Mobilit ordered. Berthold merely showed him the arm that was infected by the flying titan. Mobilit noticed that the arm was still in good condition before placing the tray down on the ground. "Good, it hasn't gotten worse," Mobilit said as he kneeled down to push the tray closer. "Are you going to kill me when this is all over?" Berthold spoke. "Not my place to decide," Mobilit answered, "but considering your track records, most likely." "Killing me won't end it all," Berthold retorted as Mobilit stood up. "I know," he agreed, "there are still other titans that need to be dealt with, along with your comrades." "There's a lot more you don't know," Berthold retorted. Mobilit raised an eyebrow at Berthold's comments. "What are you talking about?" "There are others who see you as devils," Berthold explained, "others that want you dead, others that wish you pitiful creatures were wiped off the face of the earth." "Aren't the titans a greater concern?" Mobilit questioned. "Not even close," Berthold declared. Mobilit gripped his hands on the bars. "Berthold, if you want the torture to be less severe, tell me what you..." Berthold quickly grabbed Mobilit's arm and pulled it inside his cell. Mobilit tried to pull his out, but gasped as Berthold stabbed his neck with the shard. Mobilit began gasping for air as he held onto his wound and backed away. Mobilit choked on his blood as Berthold pulled back his hand and raised the shard above his infected hand. "Didon't." Mobilit coughed as he tried to grab Berthold, but Berthold ignored him and stabbed his hand. Hanji, Sasha, and Armin were tying the wheels onto the barrels containing the flammable oil and gas. Marlowe and Hitch managed to get directions to the church, and everyone else has been setting up their weapons in order to attack the church. Hanji then called Sasha over to help with grabbing the other barrel, leaving Armin to his own devices. The cadet felt a shadow loomed over him as he looked up to see Megatron staring down at him. "Hey," Armin greeted. Megatron didn't greet him back as Armin went back to his task. The ex-con noticed Armin having some trouble tying the rope due to the weight of the barrel itself. He kneeled down and held the barrel in place, much to Armin's surprise. "Ah, thanks," Armin said. Armin tightened the rope to the wheel. Once he finished, Megatron let barrel go as it stayed still. "I want to know something," Megatron began. Armin looked up at Megatron while resisting the urge to curl in on himself and back away. Okay. Why did you join the military?" Megatron asked with a hint of curiosity. "That's a odd question," Armin admitted. "The military requirement on this planet is different from both Earth and Cybertron. That I am fully aware," Megatron explained. "As far as I'm concerned, Ackerman joined in order to protect Prime's pet. Meanwhile, Prime's pet has a childish vendetta. I don't know much about the others here, other than the fact the mad scientist is someone I should avoid. You, however, didn't have to do this. With your intellect, you could have become a scholar. Instead, you've chosen this. Why are you curious about my motivation?" Armin asked with confusion. Megatron remained silent for a moment. He couldn't say that, trying to find out about his character in order to figure out if he could be trusted. The child knows too much and said he wouldn't tell anyone, but did he mean that? "You just don't seem like you fit on a battlefield," Megatron remarked. "You're not wrong," Armin agreed. "I used to get beat up a lot as a kid. People picked on me because I was considered weak and different." "That doesn't explain why you joined," Megatron stated. "I do have a lot of reasons," Armin answered. "The most important one then," Megatron said. Armin thought it over. What was his main motivation for joining the Scouts? What gave him the drive? What inspiring dream gave him the motivation to move forward? He then remembered the book he once read and showed to Eren when they were younger. The ocean, Armin declared. I want to be able to see the ocean. Megatron deadpanned. The ocean. I know that doesn't mean a lot to you since you've traveled the universe, Armin said. I also ended up at the bottom of Earth's ocean after I was killed, Megatron hissed at the memory. But seeing the ocean would mean so much to me, Armin declared with a smile, a vast place of water that takes up most of the planet. Full of salt, the merchants can't even touch it. You can't get something like that inside the wall, and talking about the outside is considered taboo for us. But if I get to see it at least once with Eren and Mikasa, that would mean everything to me. What do those two have to deal with you seeing the ocean? Megatron questioned. I kind of got them interested in the outside too, Armin said with a small laugh. I used to show them books about it. And after Shiganshina, we made a pact to join the scouts to gain access to go to the outside and see the ocean. I assume Shiganshina is the walled town south of here, Megatron proclaimed. How? I came across it before that battle with the armored and the colossal, Megatron explained. Oh, Armin trailed off. I think Eren, Mikasa, and I are the only ones that survived the attack. My parents were killed before then and my grandfather was eaten by the Titans. As an orphan, there would have been no way for me to become a scholar or something with a stable social standing. And Eren and Mikasa are all I have left. Maybe Eren seems like a pain in the ass to you, and I can't change his attitude, but he was my very first friend. I don't know what I would have done without them. Armin realized he was getting emotional and cleared his throat. So yeah, I want to see the ocean with Eren and Mikasa. It doesn't seem like much to you, but it means everything to me. Armin waited for the Khan to say something, but he merely stared at him. You should head back to your station, Pax, Megatron advised. About that, Armin began. You shouldn't call me Pax. And why is that? Megatron demanded. I'm not the only one who's aware of Optimus' original name, Armin explained. If they hear you call me that, they might get suspicious. And if Optimus hears, then he'll definitely want to know what's going on. Megatron sighed. Alright then, what should I call you? You could call me by my name, Armin suggested. No. If you want that, you have to earn my respect, Megatron declared. What about Alert? Alert. Alert, Armin clarified. It's my last name. Megatron raised an eyebrow. I'm calling you Alert 1. Armin sighed in frustration as Megatron got up and walked off. At least it was close to his name. Armin then grabbed the barrel and struggled to pick it up before placing it on another cart Marlow and Hitch managed to borrow from one of the residents. Meanwhile, Megatron sat on the edge of the cart where Annie's body was, since no one was really guarding her. So the boy's dream was to see the outside. It made sense. The humans here believe they are the last of their kind, and going outside would mean certain death. It shouldn't mean much to someone like him, but he does understand Armin's situation, considering he used to be a miner before he was a gladiator. Deprived of even the simplest of needs. But Armin had a desire for knowledge. A desire for a world he had been denied. Maybe he didn't have any ill intentions. This is adorable, Megatron heard a voice say. The former warlord actually stiffened as he saw a human-sized version of Unicron standing in front of him. Not now, Megatron hissed quietly. You think that you'll be appreciated for what you do today? That you can trust the boy? That this pathetic world is worth fighting for? Unicron assumed. You haven't voiced it, but deep down you believe it. Megatron didn't say a word. He couldn't have his hallucinations now. Not before a mission, not in front of the slagging humans. Are you ignoring me? Unicron questioned before chuckling. It makes sense, but it also is frustrating. You don't wish to seem like a madman in front of the humans, but you know just as well as I that the humans don't appreciate what you do for them. They fear you and what you've done. How long will it be before they do cause harm? Megatron glared at Unicron before the hallucination changed into that of his younger self. And I don't mean physically, his younger self declared. Sasha slightly hissed at the sight of Megatron sitting on the edge of the cart Annie was in. Before she walked off, she noticed something was off with the con. What was he looking at? His eyes kept on drifting as if he was searching for something, or looking at someone. Why was he distracted? Sasha, what are you doing? Levi demanded as he walked up to her. He's distracted, Sasha whispered. Levi raised an eyebrow at her. He keeps on looking at something, and I know for a fact it's not Recon, Sasha explained in a low voice. What if he's unstable? Levi thought it over for a moment. Go help Jean and Amin with supplies. Sasha merely nodded her head and looked at the hollow form one more time before walking off. Levi carefully walked towards the con while picking up a rifle from the cart. It's only a matter of time before Pax betrays you, his younger self declared. You need to kill him now before he says anything. Megatron closed his eyes and gritted his teeth to try and distract himself from conversing with his delusions. Stop ignoring the truth. Unicron shouted, you can't trust him. You can't trust anyone. How do you know the disciple of Primus is telling you the truth about leaving this rock? He could be lying to you, he's done it before. Shut up, Megatron hissed. You know I'm right. Unicron proclaimed. Shut up, Megatron repeated. His younger self slammed the axe next to him on the cart. The world hates you. They hate you. It's only a matter of time before you're driven off this world and away from Optimus for good. Megatron heard something clicked at the side of the hollow form's head and immediately pulled out his sword. He glanced over to see the dwarf holding a rifle at his head while his sword was close to taking out his eye. What do you want? Megatron demanded. A soldier of mine said you seemed off, the dwarf began. Is someone watching us? Megatron put his sword away. No. Levi lowered his rifle before turning his back and leaning against the cart. Anything on your mind? Megatron stared ahead and saw the corpses of dead Cybertronians. No. Levi sighed. With the information Mikasa told him, there was definitely something Megatron was hiding. Not some deadly plan to wipe out humanity, but something personal. In order to do that, he would have to do something out of his comfort zone, like not harm any of them. He was really about to do this, about to see if Mikasa and Amin's assumptions were true. Hanji had a theory that past damage done on your kind or any expression is reflected on that human form, no matter if the body's been repaired. Your point? Megatron hissed. It looks like you haven't slept in a couple of days, Levi declared. Levi noticed Megatron not responding to him, but he could feel his eyes on the back of his skull. The max amount of sleep I usually get is 4 hours, Levi continued. Hanji says I'm an insomniac. Why are you telling me this? You suddenly care for my well-being. Megatron spat out. No, Levi admitted, I'm concerned about those brats. I'm afraid one of your actions might kill one of them. So you don't trust me? Megatron rolled his eyes. Then why come and talk to me? Because I want to know if you're ready for this mission, Levi answered. Megatron chuckled. An amusing joke. I don't joke, Levi declared. Maybe everyone is too scared to notice, but you are not exactly the definition of prefect and stable. You're erratic, unstable, and angry. Another lecture, Megatron hissed. Exactly what I need from a human. Levi turned and looked at him. Get off your fucking high horse, you necrophilia whore. Megatron glared at him with an expression that screamed death as he stood up and aimed the pistol at his stomach, away from view of the others. I dare you to say that again. Necrophilia. Ho, Levi enunciated as he stared him down. All you do is talk down to us humans while you run away from your own problems. These walls are our world, it is all we have. And I have to lead a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds to go and kill members of their own kind in order to save what's left. I know you're not fine, but if all you're going to do is bitch and moan about us, then you can just leave. We can do this without you, and we've done our shit without Optimus for a century. Levi honestly waited. He waited for Megatron to pull the trigger and kill him, but he removed the pistol and started laughing. Levi watched as the former warlord tried to contain his laughter, but he continued on. What's so funny? Levi demanded. By the Allspark, you are sadistic. Megatron grinned. You were testing me to see if I would shoot you. And why would that matter? Levi questioned. Because you know the reason I'm staying, don't you? Megatron proclaimed as he leaned down to make eye contact with him. I must admit, I can see why you're called humanity's strongest, especially since you were willing to risk death for a chance to insult me. He thinks I figured out his motivation on my own, Levi assumed. He had to let him assume that for Amin's safety. All right then, Levi, Megatron began as he straightened himself out and twirled the pistol. It would seem that you are in it to fight for humanity's future. So I tell you what, for your bold move just now, I'll leave Kenny alive for you. Levi raised an eyebrow at that. Why? You want answers, or you want revenge? Megatron answered. I don't mind either. As a matter of fact, I would enjoy the show. So, Kenny's yours. Levi watched as Megatron put the pistol at his side and walked away. I did mean what I said. I meant all of it. Megatron stopped in his tracks and quietly sighed to himself. I'll make sure to keep that in mind. Meanwhile, Annie opened one eye as she saw Levi walk away. Holy hell! She never thought she would be so terrified. Levi was humanity's strongest, and whoever this Titan was almost shot him. This was insane. What was this Titan going to do to her when they found out she was conscious? Annie took a deep breath. Calm down. There had to be an instance where she could be able to run away. Whatever Levi said about leading everyone to go kill humans, that may be her only opportunity to run. I'm sorry I'm late, Historia. Rod apologized as he walked back to Historia with a small bag. What is that? Historia asked as she walked towards him. Aaron looked in horror as he saw Rod open a small box, revealing a needle and small glass with the Titan serum inside. What made matters worse, was that he noticed the Titan serum had energon inside. Historia, there is a way for you to see Frida again, Rod proclaimed. There is? Historia asked in confusion. Yes, but you must follow my instructions, Rod declared. You want to see Frida again, don't you? Aaron tried to scream, but the muzzle prevented him from doing so. He was only able to rattle his chains and release muffled noises. Why are you glaring at me like that, Aaron? Historia demanded. What gives you the right? Aaron has realized his own fate, and he will suffer for his sins, Rod declared, and the power inside of him will be returned to the rightful ruler once more. Aaron was never meant to have this power, and it's pointless for him to have because he can do nothing with it. This is the place, Megatron stated as he pointed to the church. The Survey Corps stopped at the church and began to tie down the horses before getting their supplies. Niffer, you'll be helping Amin and Sasha create a smoke screen for us when we initiate the attack, Hanji explained. If one of us goes down, you can either pull us to safety or get into the fight yourself. It's your call. Niffer nodded her head as Levi opened the door to the church. Everyone, make sure to get ready, Levi ordered before turning to Marlowe and Hitch. You two will watch our supplies and Annie. If she wakes up, make sure she doesn't escape. Marlowe and Hitch nodded their heads in understanding and grabbed rifles to guard Annie. Meanwhile, Megatron grabbed the other pistol and took an extra smoke round with him in case if he needed an extra weapon. The ex-con looked over to see Armin picking up a rifle as he tried to load the bullets. Armin continued shaking as he was trying to load the rifle, but stumbled as one of the bullets fell to the floor. Armin knelt down and picked it up, unaware that Megatron was walking towards him. Alert Megatron spoke, causing Armin to jolt and quickly stand up. Megatron, Armin trailed off before sighing, I'm sorry. I guess I'm nervous. You're afraid of killing, Megatron proclaimed. Armin placed the bullet in the rifle before closing it shut. I didn't kill anyone when I helped you find Annie. I wasn't put in that situation. Now I will probably have to, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Megatron opened his mouth, but decided to close it for the moment. He would have told Armin to suck it up simply because he was a soldier. He was required to kill the enemy. Then Megatron thought it over. The dwarf and the mad scientist have fought in the military longer than the others had. He knows that they've killed both Titans and humans, he could see it in their faces. The rest of them were just children. Children who were trained to kill monsters, not their own species. Calling the Titans monsters made it easier for them to kill, but these were humans like them. People with their own lives and reasons of fighting. He was pretty sure Prime's 3 human children were kept away as much as possible from the crossfire and didn't kill members of their own kind. He hated to admit it, but he felt bad for their situation. The first kill is usually the hardest, Megatron began. Armin turned his gaze to the con. Does it get easier from there? Depends, Megatron answered. It depends if you'll be consumed by your guilt or morality, or if you're willing to throw it aside so that you can survive another day. It makes sense, Armin agreed. I guess it was easier for you, since all of your kills started in the arena. Megatron glanced down at Armin before looking ahead. It was in the mines. Armin raised his eyebrows in confusion and surprise. I hesitated before I made my kill, Megatron continued. That cost the life of someone I once knew. I'm sorry, Armin apologized. The dead is dead. There's nothing you can do to change it, Megatron declared. I understand that it is hard. That taking a life of someone like you may bring up some conflicting emotions. That doesn't necessarily make you evil. Optimus has killed just as many as I have, but he still chose to protect others. But I've robbed someone of their life, Armin retorted. Killing them doesn't mean you're robbing someone of their value. When you go into battle, you're expected to fight to the death, Megatron explained. The other side wants just as much as you to succeed and live. But if you don't kill, then you will die. Your comrades and humanity will die, and you will never get to see the ocean. Yeah, Armin trailed off. How can I calm my nerves before I make the kill? Megatron looked down at Armin as the boy's gaze was to his weapon. The former warlord felt a sense of sympathy for the boy's dilemma, since it's been so long for him to feel conscious about a kill. He then kneeled down and steadied his trembling hands on the rifle, causing Armin to stare at him in surprise. When you do make your move, Megatron began, clear your mind. Take a moment to breathe and anticipate. Do not hesitate for a moment, and keep yourself steady. Armin looked Megatron in the eye and nodded his head, feeling his nerves finally calming down. Megatron stood up and put a hand on his shoulder in reassurance before making his way towards the church. Levi raised an eyebrow at Megatron as he walked towards him and the center of the church. Didn't think you were one to give pep talks, Levi remarked. I would advise you not to test my patience, Megatron warned. And I do not care, Levi declared as he pulled away the rug to reveal the entrance to the cave. Can you two please not get into a fight? Hanji asked as she walked up to them with her 3D gear on. I just want to get this over with. Levi and Megatron glared at each other before deciding to look away from each other. "Oh, I almost forgot to bring this up," Hanji began. "Megatron, I need to find Aaron and Historia once we engage the enemy. There are only 10 of you that are left alive, 2 of which you've left to guard Leonhardt," Megatron retorted. "At the same time, we need to get to Aaron and Historia as soon as possible," Hanji countered. "We're expendable, Aaron and Historia are not. So we need you to get to them and stall long enough for the rest of us to get there, or what remains of us." Megatron sighed. "All right, fine." Berthold gasped for air as he moved aside the remains of the castle using the half-formed Titan body. Berthold looked down and noticed the dark energon in his hand was starting to rapidly spread across his body. He pulled out of the body of the Titan and fell to the floor. He picked himself up and noticed the dark energon spreading across his arm once more. He had to get help. He had to get help, and fast. Berthold stumbled on his feet before running as fast as he could away from the damage he caused. "There's about 8 of them, maybe 9," Kenny's lieutenant recalled as the secret military police stayed in their hiding spots among the pillars. "Levi is amongst, but there's also that swordsman. He took out half of our men, and he didn't have any 3D gear. Even with our 3D gear, there's going to be chaos between us and them," a soldier sitting next to her declared. "Well, we are high enough off the ground," the lieutenant retorted. "He won't be able to reach us." "How long do we have to continue this?" the soldier asked. "Not long," she declared as she loaded her weapons. "Kenny's making his plans to stop Rice, and once he gets the power of the Titans, he'll turn this world upside down. Just have some faith. It'll pay off." The soldiers suddenly heard a loud bang and turned to see the door being kicked open. The lieutenant gasped as the swordsman ran down the stairs and towards the pillars. "Fire!" she shouted. The swordsman dodged their firepower as he pulled out a small gun and fired a bullet at a soldier square in the chest. He then pulled out his sword and threw it at another person's chest, causing him to drop to the floor. Before the lieutenant could spout another order, she heard a loud explosion and looked down to see smoke flooding the area. "What the hell?" she questioned as trails of smoke was fired from their only exit. She and the others saw the Survey Corps flying in with their own 3D gear. 35 enemies, she heard Levi shout. "They're grouped near the ceiling on the pillars. Continue the operation. Everyone, scatter," she shouted, but gasped as she felt something sharp go through her chest. She heard someone call out her name as she fell to the floor. She felt herself slipping out of consciousness as she saw the silhouette of the swordsman walk up to her and pull the sword out of her chest. She only met darkness as the swordsman rammed his sword through her head. "Do you think she's going to wake up?" Hitch asked as she glanced at her form. "I don't know," Marlowe admitted. "We've been given our orders and we shouldn't complain about it. I don't want to deal with Levi or any other members of the Survey Corps. Or the Flying Titan," Hitch added, "but I'm not complaining about the orders. I just want to know why Annie did what she did. She was always so reserved and quiet. I didn't think much of it, but she's actually the enemy. I wish there was something we could do about it," Marlowe admitted. "There's nothing we can do to change it," Hitch declared before groaning. "How long do we have to stay here?" "Until they're done," Marlowe answered. "Hitch, this is serious." "I know it is, but I don't want her jumping out at us," Hitch explained. "We'll just knock her unconscious again," Marlowe retorted. "Yeah, knock someone like her unconscious," Hitch hissed. "It's been done," Marlowe retorted. Hitch sighed. "I'm just going to get a telescope to see if anyone else is nearby." Marlowe nodded his head while Hitch walked over to one of the horses and rummaged through the bag on the side. When she pulled out the telescope, she turned around and gasped when she saw Annie pushing herself up in a sitting position. "Marlowe, behind you!" Hitch shouted. Marlowe quickly turned around and saw Annie trying to grab him. He reacted as fast as he could and shot Annie's hand, knocking her back. "We have to tell the others," Hitch declared. As Marlowe was about to move, Annie jumped and began to choke Marlowe with her bound hands as her wound was already gone. Hitch aimed her rifle at Annie, trying her best not to hit her friend in the head. Marlowe reacted fast and bit down on her hand. Annie retracted her hand, allowing Marlowe to be released from her grip. Hitch fired the rifle at Annie's hand, accidentally destroying the rope binding her hands. Annie ripped the rope off while her wound regenerated in an instant. As Annie tried to unite the rope binding her legs, Marlowe rushed in with a rifle to try and knock her out. Annie quickly grabbed the end of the rifle and began to force Marlowe back. Marlowe gasped as he noticed her eyes turning a light shade of blue before she grabbed the middle of the rifle and snapped it in two. "What the?" Marlowe coughed in pain as Annie punched him in the gut, causing him to collapse on the ground. "Marlowe!" Hitch shrieked while Annie ripped the rope on her feet apart and jumping out of the cart. She stumbled a little before managing to straighten herself out. Hitch quickly grabbed a spare pistol and aimed it at Annie while trying to back away. "Hey Annie, stay away," Hitch ordered as Annie walked towards her while untying the bands on her mouth. "Get away from me," Hitch yelled as she fired at the center of her chest. Annie stumbled back from the force, but didn't fall over. The wound was gone in a matter of seconds as the bullet was forced out of her chest and fell to the ground. Hitch gasped in fear as she dropped the pistol and tried to run, but Annie merely rushed her and began to choke her from behind. Hitch struggled for air and tried to break free, but it was useless as Annie snapped her neck. Marlowe recovered from his wound and watched in horror as Hitch's corpse fell to the ground. As Annie made her way to one of the horses, Marlowe screamed as he ran towards her, grabbing the other end of the broken rifle. He was going to smack her with it, but gasped as Annie grabbed smoke round from the bag on the horse and shot him in the stomach. Marlowe coughed off blood as he collapsed on the ground. Marlowe gasped in pain as he held on to his burning wound. Marlowe looked up at Annie with anger, and tried to claw his way towards her. However, the loss of blood and his wound were too much, causing him to collapse on the ground and breathe his last. Annie dropped the smoke ground onto the ground as she stared at the two dead bodies. Annie slapped herself in the face to calm her nerves before going back to the cart she was in and rummaging through it. Annie found a cloak and grabbed before wearing it, wanting to keep her identity hidden from anyone she might come across. She ran over to a horse and pet it on the nose before climbing on the saddle and putting the hood over her head. She whipped the reins and guided the horse away from the church and towards a gate or the wall. Aaron continued to remain motionless as Rod continued to explain his family heritage to his daughter and how the power that resided within him would be unable to work. He was trying to get over his shock at the situation. His father was a Titan shifter. He killed the entire Rice family line in order to steal and keep their power, and then he made his own son eat him. And the worst part, he can't even use the powers correctly. He thought he was helping humanity, instead he was a burden. His existence led to the suffering of other people. You've done nothing to help humanity move forward or even pose as a threat to your enemies. Megatron declared, you can't use your powers correctly, you don't know where you received it, and you have to be saved by Optimus or some other human. You were never humanity's hope. You are just as worthless as any other human on this rock and your existence will amount to nothing. He was right. He didn't know where his father was and now realized he ate the man that could have led to the truth of this world. He wasn't able to save Levi's squad. He could have taken action but he let them die. Meanwhile, Optimus was the one that was able to capture Annie and save him. He couldn't hold his own against Raina. Optimus and Megatron were the ones that were able to take him down. Megatron was the one who was able to capture Berthold while he wasn't even able to stop him in his Titan form. Optimus and Megatron helped humanity move forward, while he dragged everyone back. Berthold and Rainer attacked humanity because they were after him. Thomas, Mina, Franz, and many other trainees died before he even figured out about his power. People died because he had a power that wasn't supposed to belong to him. He couldn't avenge the death of his mother, he couldn't save Hans from dying. If the power just stayed with the Rice family, humanity would have been saved. He didn't need to exist, he wasn't able to do anything, he was unnecessary. He didn't deserve to live. As long as Eren holds the power within him, this nightmare will never end, Rod declared. No one outside of the Rice bloodline can use this power. So that means I can't use this power? Kenny questioned as he lowered himself to the ground using his gear. There's no point in me turning into a Titan and eating Eren. All that work serving you was for nothing. Kenny, let me, Rod gasped as Kenny grabbed him and lifted him in the air and aimed his gun at his head. You knew exactly what I was doing, and you strung me along like I was your fucking puppet, Kenny hissed. And I'm grateful that you continued, Rod declared. My brother was right to pick a dog like you off the streets. Insult Yuri at all and I'll blow your brains out. Kenny shouted. Stop it. Historia begged as she grabbed Kenny's arm and pulled it away from Rod. Kenny looked down at her and sighed. Historia, you poor thing. One. Megatron jumped out of the way as another body fell to the floor. The ex-con managed to see through the smoke and noticed all of the Survey Corps members making the effort to kill the military police. Megatron looked behind him to see two military policemen make their way towards him. Megatron grabbed his sword and decapitated the one on his left. Bastard, the other one shouted as he aimed his weapon at him. Megatron was ready to attack, but someone shot his head off. Megatron turned to the source and stared in slight surprise as he saw Armin holding a smoke round in his hand. Armin took one look at Megatron before grabbing a rifle and firing at another person. Megatron, what the fuck are you doing? Hanji shouted as she landed on the ground behind. Helping you. Megatron answered. You're supposed to go after Eren and Historia. Hanji stated. That can wait. Megatron shouted. No, it can fucking not. Hanji retorted as she glanced back at him. We're expendable. Eren and Historia are not. They're top priority. Megatron noticed a military policeman coming towards them and quickly got in front of Hanji, blocking his attacks with his shield. Hanji then got in front of the former warlord and decapitated the soldier. Just go. We'll take it from here. Hanji declared before flying back up to the pillars. Megatron hesitated. Should he grab the two or stay with the other humans? Why was he hesitating? Megatron shook his head before running deeper into the cave to find the two children. Historia and Rod looked in horror as Kenny cut Eren's head with a knife. Kenny, what are you doing? Rod demanded. Giving Eren a head start, Kenny answered as he placed the knife at his side. I'm not going to waste the rest of my life, and if Historia really wants to become God, she's going to have to fight for it. Kenny jumped and glided his way out of Eren's range while Rod ran towards his bag. Historia began to shake in fear as Rod came back to her with a syringe filled with the Titan serum in hand. You need to take this. Rod ordered. I made sure this was the strongest Titan I could get, and it has the substance used in the Metal Titans. You'll be able to defend yourself. And you don't have to kill Eren. You can bite into his spine and drink his spinal fluids. You have to hurry, Historia. Historia nodded her head as Rod backed away to a safe distance. She was about to inject herself, but stopped when she noticed Eren wasn't doing anything. He wasn't transforming at all and just had his head down. Eren, what are you doing? Historia asked. If you don't transform into a Titan, I will kill you. Eren responded by lifting his head to look at Historia. Historia could only gap as blood dripped down from his forehead and tears were coming down his face. I never needed to happen, Eren declared. Me and my dad, if my dad never took that power 5 years ago, you would have been able to solve this mess. My mother, Armin's grandpa, Hans, Mina, Thomas, Levi's squad, they wouldn't have died because of me. Everything happened because of me, and I can never atone for those sins. The dreams of going outside the walls are pointless. People have died because of me. I never needed to happen. Historia stared in sadness as Eren hung his head. So at the very least, end it all for me, Eren begged. Eat me, and save humanity. Rod stared at his daughter while Kenny adjusted his hat from the ceiling of the pillar. Eren, Historia began, the day you called me a normal girl, it made me happy. Before Historia could inject the serum into her arm, a loud gunshot rang through the cave. Rod turned around and looked in horror to see his bag of the Titan serum was nothing more than a pile of ash. Everyone turned to the source of the attack and saw that it was Megatron in his human form holding the now useless smoke round. No, Eren breathed while Historia gasped in fear. Shit, Kenny cursed. Who are you? Rod demanded. Megatron didn't respond as he threw the smoke gun aside and pulled out the pistol. Rod yelled in pain as Megatron shot the man in the arm. Rod winced as Megatron put the pistol away and pulled out his sword. The former warlord walked toward the king, dragging the blade across the floor. Kenny. Don't just stand there. Help. Rod begged. I'm not helping you anymore, you little shit. Kenny shouted, and I'm not touching that bastard with a 10-foot pole. That fucker's the flying titan. Megatron stopped and chuckled before he began laughing his head off. You Akamans are just full of surprises, aren't you? And while I do appreciate you choosing not to interfere, the only reason I'm not going to kill you is because the dwarf has some unfinished business with you. But since you're not going to attack, I suggest that you enjoy the show as I spill this man's insides. Kenny internally cursed as Megatron turned his attention towards Rod Rice. Rod backed away in fear as Megatron rushed him and grabbed him by the collar and throwing him to the ground. Megatron stepped on the man's throat and raised his sword, ready to ram the sword through his head. Don't kill my father. Historia begged. Megatron merely glanced at her as he was about to make his move, but stopped when he noticed something was wrong. He lowered his sword and looked at the child and noticed a syringe in her hand, laced with energon inside it. What do you think you're doing? Megatron demanded in an ominous tone as he removed his foot from Rod's throat. Historia, run! Eren yelled. But Historia couldn't, she was petrified. She took small steps back as Megatron made strides towards her. She trembled as Megatron stopped and aimed the pistol at the center of Historia's forehead. Do you intend to kill me? Historia asked. Persuade me and I might not, Megatron answered. I know for a fact if I do, no one goes on the throne and this coup completely fails. I have to take back the power that Eren stole from my family, Historia answered. If I do, then I can use the power to eliminate the Titans and save humanity. I could also see Frieda again. He killed Frieda. Megatron raised an eyebrow as he turned his attention to a now standing Rod. What did you tell her? The truth, Rod answered with a hoarse voice while rubbing his neck. Eren's abilities were originally from my family. His father came and stole it. And transferred the power unto him, Megatron concluded as he glanced up to see Eren's pained and bloody face, meaning the one that know the truth about the Titans is dead. That doesn't explain why she's about to become a mindless beast. I'll make sure that the power is returned to the rightful owner, Historia declared. I'll exterminate the Titans and I'll see Frieda again. As convenient as it would be to have the power transferred onto someone that might have idea on how to use or access the power, you're going to become a Titan all because of what one man told you. Megatron questioned, This is the same man that abandoned you, let your mother die, sent you off to the military to die, and not bother to contact you. No creator should leave his creation to die, yet you're willing to blindly follow his orders. I'm not Historia hissed. You are, Megatron declared. He's deceiving you, and trying to keep his control over humanity. He doesn't want humanity to thrive beyond the walls. Historia, that's not true. Don't listen to that monster. Rod begged. By the Allspark, you dripping with lies. Megatron exclaimed in irritation. Tell me, if I shouldn't believe my own father, then why should I believe you? A stranger, a war criminal, and a tyrant that destroyed his own home, Historia listed. You don't have to, Megatron shrugged. I'm merely doing this for my own personal benefit. I don't care enough for humanity, it could be devoured for all I care. I have a debt and I will stay alive as long as I have to in order to repay it. I don't care what happens to me after. Historia's grip merely tightened around the syringe. I don't care about your debt. I care about humanity and Frida. Yes, Historia. You'll lose the chance. Rod yelled. Either you keep your mouth shut or she dies first. Megatron threatened. She's all that I have. Rod retorted. Bullshit. Megatron declared before looking down at Historia. Before you decide to blindly become a Titan, ask yourself this: why didn't your father stop the reign of the Titans? Why didn't this Frida do it? Why didn't the one before her? Or your other ancestors? Historia thought it over for a moment. She remembered Frida removing a splinter from her hand before yelling at her for going over the fence. How she wasn't allowed to. Then Frida would fall into a state of despair and agony. She would remain immobile, she would want to die. Dad, why didn't Frida use her Titan powers to set humanity free? Why was she always so distressed? Historia asked. When she inherited the powers of the Titan, did she also inherit the first king's ideology? Why does that matter? Rod questioned. I think she deserves to know, Megatron hissed. Rod took a deep breath and let go of his injured arm. The first king, the one who created the walled world, wished for a world to be ruled by the Titans. The first king believed that was the way to true peace. I begged my father to try and change it, but he never did. Yori inherited the power, and when he did I understood what he meant. My brother became the sole creator of the world. A governing force, an all-powerful being. We call that God. God is the one that controls everything and decides everything. Whether humanity lives or dies, all depends on the decisions of God. I'm sorry I didn't plan on telling you this earlier, but I need to bring God back into this world. It is the only option that we have. We don't have any other choice. Silence was the only thing that existed as Historia looked at the needle in her hand, pondering over her father's words while Megatron's face contorted into one of rage. To the pits with God, Megatron spoke. What? Rod demanded. You heard me, Megatron hissed. To the blasted pits with God. Decide what's best, whether humanity lives or dies. If God is supposed to save his people and create a world of peace, then why would he abandon them? Why would he subject them to unethical conditions? Force them into slave labor? Allow them to be devoured by monsters while others watch with sick grins as if they never had value? Why would God brainwash their subjects into believing that this is how life is supposed to be? Why would God sacrifice their own flesh and blood for their selfish needs? Why would God say that freedom is less important than security? You control only a small portion of the world. It's minuscule, insignificant. This world itself is vast, and there are worlds beyond this one. Stars, galaxies, infinite beauty. And you decided to refrain humanity because you're selfish and refuse to help humanity expand the possibilities. The gods on this world and Cybertron should mean nothing. I say to the pits with God because God only cares for himself, and not for his people. I climbed from the mines. I gave myself a name and made sure it was remembered. I defied God because I knew no one else will. Megatron turned his attention to Historia before removing the gun from her head. I don't care if you trust me, hate me, or even believe me. But know that he was the one who tore away the people you love. He's the one who took your mother, made you a disgrace and left you to die. Most likely even took away this Frida you hold so dear and her free will. Now, he wants to turn you into a butchered version of God. Take it from someone who knows the consequences of taking power, you will suffer if you do this. But if you still wish to become God, make sure that you're willing to pay the price. Historia waited for Megatron to make a move to stop her, but he didn't. He merely waited for her to make her choice. She looked down at the needle in her hand and realized she had the chance to do it right now. To inject herself and regain those lost memories. She could save humanity, and she could find Yima. Yima, what would she think of her doing this? What would she say? All her time in training, everyone thought of her as a goddess. She knew that, but Yima didn't. She accepted her flaws and all. She loved her, Krista, listen to me. Yima's voice ran through her head. It looks like this is the end, but if we do make it out, I want you to remember that promise we made on the mountain. Historia remembered her taking the knife from Connie on Castle Utgard, saying that Optimus wasn't going to help them soon enough. That she had to take matters into her own hands. She remembered the sun rising as Yima put a hand on her shoulder. Krista, even if you don't remember, I want you to promise me something. Yima pleaded. Well, this is more of a hope for me. Just promise me. Promise me that you will live your life with your head held high. A tear fell down Historia's face as she realized her situation. What was she doing? If she did this, she wouldn't be living her life. She would just be following someone else's orders and be a good girl like she's always done. No more. She was done. Historia laughed at her situation before looking at Megatron. You were right. I was being so stupid. Why would I follow someone's lies when it's total bullshit? Historia. Historia merely threw the syringe to the ground, causing it to shatter and spill out the contents. Rod looked in horror before turning his angered gaze at Historia. How dare you? Rod made his way towards Historia while Megatron pulled out his sword and got in front of her. As he was prepared to kill Rod, Historia grabbed the pistol from his hand and shot Rod in the stomach. I will never become God. Historia declared as she fired another shot at his leg. You destroyed the world, you destroyed Frida, but you will not destroy me too. Historia fired 2 more shots at Rod's shoulder and other arm, causing him to collapse on the ground. Rod breathed heavily as Historia walked over to his deformed state. You're destroying the peace, Rod forced out. No, Historia declared, your peace is a lie, and I will no longer be your good little girl. Historia pulled the trigger and shot the last bullet into Rod's skull. Historia took a deep breath as she let the gun slip from her hand and onto the ground. She suddenly felt exhausted as her legs gave out. Before she hit the floor, however, Megatron rushed over and quickly caught the new queen. You didn't stop me, Historia said as Megatron helped her stand. I wanted to see if you made the right decision, Megatron declared, to see if you were worthy of your title. Historia looked down at the corpse that was her father, but she didn't feel disgusted, or afraid, or remorse. I killed my father. What does that make of me? A murderer, a savior, maybe something else, Megatron listed. Regardless of what you may think, I believe you have earned your freedom. Historia turned her attention to the former warlord and gave a small smile. Thank you, for stopping me from making a decision I might have regretted. Megatron merely nodded his head before turning his attention to Kenny. So are you going to come down or do I have to come up there? 1. I'm cornered either way, Swordsman Kenny answered as he released his grappling hook and landed on the ground. So what do you want to do now? I do intend to take these two and leave, Megatron declared, unless if you intend to stop me. No thanks, Kenny answered as he raised his hands. I prefer to keep my organs intact. I doubt the dwarf would allow that, Megatron retorted, which reminds me, what is your relationship to the dwarf? What are you talking about? Kenny demanded. I blackmailed him 2 days ago and he told me this interesting story about how you took him in when he was on the brink of death before abandoning him after some time, Megatron explained. You're a well-known serial killer, someone free of materialistic bounds, yet you save a random child from the underground. So tell me, are you the dwarf's father? Kenny snickered before he let out a laugh. Like the midget would ever be my kid. He's my pride and joy, but definitely not my kid. Megatron merely shrugged. Well, whatever he is to you, you have 5 seconds to get away from him. Kenny widened his eyes as he realized Megatron was stalling for time. Oh, you mother one. Kenny grunted as Levi kicked him in the back to the ground before kicking him in the back of the head. Get off of me, you fucking shorty. Kenny shouted. Fat chance, you old bastard. Levi retorted. Megatron watched as the other members of the Survey Corps came flying in towards the area. Historia then walked away from Megatron and rummaged through the ashes of the bag and found the keys to Aaron's cuffs. Megatron merely waited while Aaron's chains were unlocked. He noticed that Aaron kept his gaze away from him, but paid no mind to it. The rest of the MPs are either dead or injured, Hanji informed as she walked to the ex-con while holding her arm, and I think I broke my arm. Seems you humans are more competent than I thought, Megatron remarked. I think that's the closest thing to a compliment you're ever going to give, Hanji sighed. So what do you intend to do with him? Megatron asked as he gestured to Kenny. We don't know how much he knows, Hanji declared, so we'll keep him alive for questioning. Speaking of prisoners, we need to go and check on Leonhardt, Megatron declared. Yeah, sure, I just need a break, Hanji sighed. We need to go back, Megatron said. Alright, fine, Hanji gave in. The Survey Corps and Megatron pulled themselves out of the church with Aaron and Historia in tow. Sasha gasped as she saw Marlowe and Hitch's corpses on the ground, with Marlowe's lying in a pool of his own blood. Holy shit, Connie breathed. Megatron ran over to the cart and saw the bounds that held Annie lying there. He growled as he picked it up and showed to the rest of the Survey Corps. This is what I meant, Megatron declared, you all should have just killed Leonhardt when you had the chance. Now she's free, she killed 2 of your soldiers and she most likely fled the wall to wherever Liberio is. Megatron threw the bounds on the grounds. You could have killed her, but no one wants to listen to the evil Decepticon who's had eons worth of experience and knows exactly what it's like to have a prisoner or an ally stab you in the slagging back. Before Megatron could continue ranting, the Survey Corps heard an engine noise and turned to see Optimus Alt Mode driving towards to the church. He transformed into his bipedal mode and looked down at the Survey Corps. What happened? Optimus asked. You're late, Megatron answered, and I'm leaving. Megatron deactivated his hollow form before Optimus said anything else. Annie continued riding through Wall Rose, trying her best to get to Wall Maria before the sun rose and the Titans would be active. Once she made it there, she could probably wait an extra day before making her way back to her hometown. But what happened back there, how she was able to break the rifle with her bare hands? How was she able to do that? And her arm? Annie looked down at her arm to see it fully grown and perfectly functioning. She could feel the blood circulating through her fingers. What did that man do to her? How was her arm back? She gasped as she noticed the veins in her arm beginning to glow a shade of blue. What the hell was this? Annie yelped as her horse suddenly came to a stop as it hit something. She pulled the horse back and saw someone on the ground clutching his arm in pain. Berthold? Annie questioned in shock as she jumped off her horse. Annie? Berthold choked before he coughed up blood. Annie looked in horror as she noticed dark spots spreading across his arm. She tried to approach him, but he crawled away. Stay away. Berthold shouted, it's going to hurt you. Let me die. What happened to you? Annie asked in shock. Another T-Titan like Optimus, Berthold stuttered before coughing up more blood. He's dangerous. He'll kill you. Are you Ugh? Annie watched as the dark spots made its way to his neck. He coughed up more blood and collapsed on the ground, causing her to run towards him. Berthold, stay with me, Annie begged as she kneeled down. Berthold looked up at her and gave her a sad smile. I don't think I'll make it. At least, I got to see you. Just tell Raina I'm sorry. Annie began to panic before looking down at her regenerated arm. Whatever was inside of her might be able to help him. She stood up and ran towards the horse and rummaged through the bag to see if there was any way to transfer whatever was inside of her to him. She found a knife and felt hope rise in her before running back to Berthold and kneeling down. We already lost Marcel, Annie declared. We can't lose you. Annie yelled in pain as she rammed the knife in the center of her back, right in between her spinal cord. She pulled it out and felt the wound instantly regenerate while seeing the blood and spinal fluid remained as it looked like it was glowing. She took the knife and stabbed Berthold with it, causing him to cry out in pain. Berthold kept on screaming while Annie watched the dark spots beginning to slowly fade. It continued to do so until it stopped at his hand. There was a finger that didn't regenerate, but Berthold seemed to calm down, allowing Annie to remove the knife. Annie noticed a dark, purple color on the blade. She grew scared and threw the knife aside. Berthold coughed on his spit as he sat up and looked at Annie. Berthold stared at his hands to see he was healed before grabbing Annie and hugging her. I'm so sorry. Berthold cried, I'm so sorry I wasn't strong enough. We weren't able to get you. Raina might be dead, I thought I'd never see you again. Annie wrapped her arms around Berthold as best as she could and rubbed his back. I was terrified too. Berthold let go of Annie and examined her right arm. I thought your arm was gone. I was taken by the people in the walls, Annie explained, and whatever they put in me got me my arm back. Annie, your eyes are blue, Berthold noticed, like really blue. Blue, Annie trailed off before she came to the realization, it's the Metal Titan's life force. But that destroyed your arm, Berthold retorted. I know, Annie remembered, but that's what happened. We need to go back and, where's Raina? I don't know, Berthold answered, I got captured and Raina was swarmed with Titans. The flying Titan grabbed me. Aaron's the coordinate. Raina wasn't able to get me. Annie thought about the information in shock. Not only were there two Metal Titans now, one of them being able to fly, but Aaron was the coordinate, the power that they needed to get in the first place. She took a deep breath before standing up and getting on the horse. We need to go back to Liberio. The mission is lost, Annie declared. We'll make our way to Shinganshina and stay there for a while before we make our way back. Get on. Berthold nodded his head and stood up. He climbed onto the horse and held onto Annie before they made their way into the night. Erwin led Pixis and the other soldiers towards the church. Pixis managed to get a map of the area and pinpoint the location of the church earlier. When they arrived at the church, they found the remaining Survey Corps confiscating weapons and tying up Kenny. Is that Kenny the Ripper? Pixis questioned. I guess it is, Erwin answered as he got off the horse and walked up to Hanji, We brought extra supplies. Do you have any medical supplies? I think I broke my arm, Hanji said as she gestured to her arm. I think we can help with that, Erwin answered with a sigh of relief. There is a lot I have to explain to you, Hanji proclaimed. Erwin and Hanji heard a strange noise and looked up to see Megatron flying towards their location. The other soldiers looked in shock as Megatron transformed into his bipedal mode and landed on the ground next to Optimus. Holy shit, what the fuck is that? One of the newcomers questioned. Pixis whistled in amazement. It is amazing. Erwin turned towards the rest of the soldiers that followed him. This is the second Metal Titan, the Flying Titan. He is a temporary ally. Erwin looked back to see Megatron talking with Optimus before he walked away and sat by himself with his back facing the rest of the humans. Optimus then transformed and activated his hollow form before he continued to help out the other humans. We need help checking out the cave, Hanji spoke. Erwin nodded his head before ordering some of the soldiers to look inside the church for anything that might remain. Megatron quietly sat by himself while the humans took care of any remaining soldiers and weapons in the church. He could have left right now. The task was completed, and he had the option of leaving this world, so why didn't he? He heard the rustling of grass as he glanced down to his right to see Historia sitting down next to him. Don't you have duties you need to attend to? Megatron questioned. Still not queen yet, so no, Historia answered with a shrug. Megatron took his gaze off of her and continued to look ahead. To be honest, I wanted to become a Titan and Eteran, Historia admitted. I really thought about it, and I think the main reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted my father to love me. That pest never cared for you, Megatron declared. I know that now, Historia admitted. I was just really vulnerable then. How did you know? I know deception when I see it, Megatron answered. But, have you been betrayed by your father? Historia asked. Cybertronians don't have parents as you humans put it, Megatron explained, at least not very often. I was just forced into manual labor the moment I began to exist. I was forced to join the military after my mother was killed, Historia explained. Being selfless was all that mattered to me, because it would make my existence meaningful. You were still living for someone else, Megatron proclaimed. You were still a slave to your creator. It did hurt, but now I feel relief, Historia admitted. It's finally over. So what will you do now? Megatron asked. Take the mantle as queen, Historia answered. That will end in tragedy, Megatron declared. Everything is still unstable right now. The people need someone to rally behind, Historia retorted. Once everything is stable, hopefully, maybe we could create something that gives everyone a voice. We? Megatron questioned as he raised an eyebrow. I'm not exactly good with politics, Historia reminded. I don't even know how to act like a queen. I figured with yours and Optimus' experience, we could create something better. I must admit, I wasn't expecting that out of you, Megatron said with amusement in his voice. Maybe you might have the makings of a ruler. About that, Historia trailed off. What happened back there? I could have made the wrong decision and let myself become a Titan. I could have killed my friends and the cycle for humanity wouldn't have ended. So, I need you to do me a favor. And that would be? Megatron asked. If I do anything unjustly, anything that harms my friends or the rest of humanity, I want you to kill me, Historia requested. Megatron finally looked down at the girl in slight surprise. Kill you? Are you sure about that? I don't want to end up like my father, Historia declared. I want to be better than him, but I could easily be corrupt with power and I almost was. So why ask me? Megatron questioned. You were willing to shoot me back there, Historia retorted. Besides, I don't think my friends would do it because of our history, or Optimus because of his obligation to protect humanity. I guess the only one I can trust that would be willing to do it would be you. Megatron blinked in surprise at the human's trust in him before he chuckled. I guess you do have the makings of a ruler. Erwin watched as Historia and Megatron continued talking with one another as Hanji walked up to him with a sling on her arm. You find this weird? Hanji asked, because I definitely do. It does convince the soldiers that Megatron can follow Historia's orders, Erwin retorted. Guess we could use that to gain the support of the people, Hanji admitted. I don't think many would just accept a new ruler unless she had the power to. Optimus already stated loyalty to her, causing that fucking 4-hour march. That still is the best way to reveal Megatron to the public, Erwin declared. There was no way we could have kept him hidden forever. Hanji looked behind her to see Optimus attending to Aaron's head wound in his hollow form on the cart. Aaron looks tired, Hanji remarked. I think we're all pretty tired, Erwin admitted. Optimus finished wiping the blood off of Aaron's face before setting the cloth down. The wound appears to have completely healed. Aaron merely nodded his head while looking away from the Prime, causing him to grow concerned. Aaron, are you all right? Optimus asked. Aaron nodded his head before resting his head on his shoulder. I'm just really tired. Optimus put a hand on his head. This ordeal is over, and you will get your rest soon. I promise. I'm really sorry for putting you through so much trouble and making you worry, Aaron apologized. You have no need to apologize. I am just glad you and Historia are safe, Optimus reassured. Aaron felt tears stinging his eyes as he thought about what happened in the cave. Should he tell him? Should he tell him about what he learned? How he ate his father? No. He can't. Optimus would probably hate him for it, he'd make him feel disgusted. He was already dragging him down anyway. The Prime didn't need him. Aaron stopped himself from crying and removed his head from Optimus' shoulder. I think I'm gonna sit here for a bit longer. Optimus nodded his head as he put a hand on his shoulder. If you need anything, just let me know. Aaron nodded his head as Optimus walked away from the cart to help someone else. Aaron sighed before noticing something in the cart. It was the prototype gun Hanji worked on. He picked up the device and saw that it had 4 bullets inside the revolver. Aaron held his breath and shut his eyes before making a decision, hiding the weapon in the jacket provided for him. Meanwhile, the Prime walked over to Hanji and Erwin before tapping Hanji on the shoulder. What's up? Hanji asked. We need to head toward the old hideout and get Berthold, Optimus suggested. That sounds like a splendid fucking idea since you made me leave Mobilit by himself to guard him, Hanji hissed. Oh my god, Mobilit. We gotta go. Buckethid, we have to go to the old castle. Megatron's head snapped towards Hanji as he glared at her. I will. Megatron, we need to get Berthold, Optimus interrupted. Megatron sighed in irritation before standing up. Historia covered her face as Megatron transformed and flew off to Walrose. Optimus deactivated his hollow form and drove towards Hanji, allowing her to jump in the passenger seat. Erwin backed away as Optimus drove off towards the gates of Walsena. Is Megatron already there? Hanji asked as the sun began to rise. Megatron arrived 10 minutes ago, Optimus answered through the radio. Good thing we climbed over the wall instead of through the gate, Hanji remarked, a lot faster. Optimus began to speed up as he saw smoke rising in the distance of where their hideout was, causing Hanji to grab the seat from the force. Slow down. What are you? Oh my god, Hanji gasped as they arrived at the castle where they were keeping Berthold. Optimus transformed into his bipedal mode after he let Hanji out, causing her to run towards the damage. The castle was completely destroyed and was nothing more than a pile of rubble. A deformed titan stood to be slightly emerging from the damage as the muscles were almost done rotting away as the skeleton still remained. Meanwhile Megatron stood there in his bipedal mode, staring at the damage. Mobility. Hanji screamed as she ran towards the damage, while Optimus stared in horror. Well, look at this, Megatron began. It appears that I was right in trying to murder the boy. Optimus turned and glared at him before stomping towards him. This is hardly the time. Is it, Optimus? Megatron questioned as he crossed his arm. You had this world's greatest threat in your servos and you could have eliminated him in order to end this farce. Instead, you let him live and left very few to guard him. And not only does this one escape, but Leonhardt escapes as well, with energon pumping through her systems and instant regeneration. You had your chance to destroy them, but now they're gone. That could have been prevented, but you wanted to show mercy. Optimus glanced at the destruction before taking one more look at Megatron. He sighed in defeat, knowing that he was right, before walking to the rubble to get Hanji. He has to be here, he has to be here. Hanji repeated to herself as she was moving the rocks around to try and find mobility. Hanji felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see Optimus in his hollow form. She screamed at him before attempting to punch him in the face, which Optimus quickly dodged. Optimus grabbed the arm that wasn't broken as she began kicking and screaming at him. I'm gonna fucking kill those bastards. Hanji shouted as she tried to get out of Optimus' grip. Hanji, please control yourself, Optimus pleaded. Shut up. Hanji yelled as she pushed Optimus' face. Hanji, listen to me, Optimus ordered. This was my mistake, I understand that, but you need to maintain your composure. Mobility is dead. Hanji shouted, and those bastards are still alive. Hanji continued screaming as Optimus kept trying to calm her down. Meanwhile, Megatron looked at the disintegrating skeleton and noticed the hand was still disfigured. The creature still had dark energon in his systems. How long would he last with it? And how long would it take for the both of them to be located? The technology here was primitive, it would take days before something got done. So what did that mean for the rest of humanity? A day later. The past couple of days have been one mess after another, but the truth is clear, the former ruler of the walls was a fraud. Not only did he have the power to defeat the Titans, but he placed a fake ruler on the throne in order to maintain a false sense of peace. He almost forced his own daughter, Queen Historia, to become a Titan and continue the false peace. Historia refused her father's ideology and ended his reign. Not only that, she has earned the loyalty and respect of the Metal Titan, Optimus Prime, and the Flying Titan, Megatron. These two Titans are willing to lay down their lives for the Queen and humanity. Historia's coronation will proceed in 2 days as she will lead us to victory, Hanji read. Is that what's been published? Erwin asked. It's the summary on the front, Hanji explained. The newspaper goes into more detail further on. We're trying to convince the people that I'm fit for the throne, Historia said. Optimus might have proven his loyalty, but Megatron. Buckethead's not going to be happy to follow a human's orders, Levi interrupted. We don't even know if he's still going to stay. He did mention a debt to me, Historia retorted. Maybe he'll stay until that debt is completed. We will have to work with what we have, Erwin declared. Optimus is still watching him, so maybe we could work something out. But for now, we should make preparations for the ceremony, Pixis added. You're right, Erwin stated. You're all dismissed. The 4 veterans and Historia exited the council room of the castle, each going their own separate ways. When Historia made her way around a corner of a hallway, she saw Megatron leaning against the wall with his arms crossed and eyes closed. Megatron, what are you doing? Historia asked. I wanted to speak with you about the arrangement, Megatron answered. You read the newspaper, Historia assumed. I heard about it, Megatron corrected. Apparently I am loyal to you. Historia sighed. I'm sorry. I didn't control what they wrote. The Survey Corps wanted to introduce you to humanity without scaring the populace. Because my form is monstrous, Megatron added as he began walking. It kind of is, Historia admitted as she walked next to him. And I doubt humanity would accept me as easily as they did with Optimus, Megatron added. You defeated the colossal titan, Historia retorted. And would it be wise to mention we allowed him to escape when we had the opportunity? Or mention my relationship with Optimus? Megatron asked. I guess it wouldn't be such a good idea, Historia admitted, but you shouldn't have to stay. Megatron stopped in his tracks but did not look at Historia. And why is that? Is it because of my actions? I don't know you well enough to judge you for that, Historia explained. I might know some things that I've heard, but I don't know everything else. But what I am trying to say is that I shouldn't force you to stay. I have no right to take away your freedom to help a race that you hate. And who's to say you're forcing me to stay? Megatron questioned as he looked back at her. You want to stay, Historia said in disbelief. Is this about your debt? Some of it, Megatron answered, but this is also about you, and whether or not you will be corrupted by your position. The last thing that I want is another corrupt leader running this place. So you're going to hold to your word about killing me, Historia assumed. Of course, Megatron stated as he fully turned towards her. Good, Historia said with a sigh of relief. Thank you for staying, and I hope you'll be able to settle your debt. My debt could be good or bad, Megatron retorted. You seem to trust me very easily. So far you've helped us, and we have nothing to offer you, Historia said. That is fair, Megatron shrugged. So means that I have to follow your orders, as a front. Yes, Historia answered. Megatron sighed to himself. Whatever gets me towards my goal. The ceremony will be in 2 days, Historia informed before walking away. Megatron glanced back at the Queen before staring out the one of the hallway windows. It looks like this was his mission now. This was strange, and he knew it was going to be annoying. 2 days later. The crowd began to cheer as one of the officials placed the crown on a kneeling Historia's head. Historia stood in front of the crowd before glancing over to see both Cybertronians in their bipedal modes, Optimus to her right and Megatron to her left. Optimus kept his battle mask on as he noticed Megatron's field screaming disgust and displeasure. Optimus merely stared silently as Megatron took a small breath to calm himself down. Historia managed to defeat her father, who almost forced her to become a Titan, someone said. She chose to fight for humanity while her father hid behind the walls. Even someone as small as her managed to gain the respect and loyalty of 2 of the strongest Titans, another person said. She is the true rulers of the walls. Queen Historia, they all cheered. Historia performed the military salute as the commanding officers kneeled down before her. Optimus and Megatron both performed the salute as well before kneeling down before her. Megatron, calm yourself, Optimus whispered through the comm, hearing a small growl on the other end. Erwin raised his head slightly to see the crowd. Maybe, just maybe, there might be a future for them all. The Survey Corps and the garrison began to smile as they clinked their beer mugs together. Both military regiments decided to throw a party later that night in success of the coup. Some of the military police, including Nile, even joined since they helped in the coup as well. Hanji, you need to sit, Erwin sighed as he rubbed his temple in irritation. Fuck you, Hanji hissed as she drank another shot of alcohol. 1. Let her get drunk and get a bitch of a hangover, Levi said as he drank his wine. She'll actually be incapacitated for at least a day, and let's be honest, it's something we all need. Mobilit would be able to handle this, Erwin sighed to himself, causing Hanji to cry. Damn it, Erwin, you need to learn when to shut up, Levi sighed. Meanwhile, Eren quietly played with his food while everyone else was conversing amongst themselves. He looked inside his jacket to see the prototype gun was still at his side. Eren, are you okay? A voice asked. Eren quickly closed his jacket and looked up to see Armin with a cup of water in hand. I'm fine, Armin. Eren reassured, just tired. I think I might leave the party a little early. You sure? Armin asked, it's rare we get food like this. I think Sasha's trying to devour the meat. I'm sure, Armin. Eren answered, thank you, for everything. Yeah. Armin trailed off as he raised an eyebrow, make sure to get some sleep. Eren watched Armin walk away before he wiped his eyes. He wanted to apologize, but he couldn't. He wasn't strong enough to. Optimus watched the celebration from a table in the corner of the room. He didn't really want to come to the party, but Hanji and the others insisted that he come since he did play a major part. So he decided to sit on the sideline and slip out when everyone was completely distracted. He was just happy this whole ordeal was over, but there was also the issue of Annie and Bertholdt. They both escaped, and one of them has energon coursing through their systems. What did that mean for the rest of humanity? Megatron most likely left, leaving him and Eren to defend against the enemy. They had to expand their resources and fast. Is this seat taken? A voice asked. 1. Optimus was snapped out of his thought before turning his gaze to Megatron's hollow form standing next to him. No, Optimus answered with a hint of confusion. The Prime watched in surprise as Megatron sat down on the bench next to him and rested his arms on the table. The former warlord noticed Optimus' apprehension and sneered. If I make you uncomfortable, I'll just leave, Megatron said. It is not that, I just did not expect you to still be here, Optimus admitted. You could have left this world. I can't really do that anymore, Megatron retorted. If I do, the Queen's power may be questioned and all this effort would have been for nothing. Why would you care about that? Optimus asked. Megatron rolled his eyes. I already wasted my time on this planet. I would be angry if my efforts went to waste. Optimus didn't respond, turning his attention back to the party. Meanwhile, Megatron began tapping the hollow form fingers on the wooden table. Optimus probably knew the ex-con was lying to him, but he wasn't sure. Megatron just wasn't ready to tell him the complete truth. At least not yet. I thought you didn't like parties, Megatron remarked. I'd drag you to bars in Kaon and you would try to stay away from the chaos. You still stood out. I should ask the same to you, Optimus retorted. You do not have a positive opinion on humans, yet you are here. I suppose so, Megatron said. Optimus didn't respond once more, causing there to be an awkward silence between the two. This was the first time in a long time that the two have had a regular conversation. There was no war, no ambush, no coup, and no seeping hatred. It was foreign for the both of them, since they have been fighting for so long. And it was also terrifying. Optimus sighed. Megatron, I am sorry for the way I treated you. Megatron's head turned to the Prime and gave him a startled look. Why are you apologizing? You're not the one who has a criminal record. Those actions were justified. You forfeited the war, Optimus explained, and I did not give you the chance to prove yourself. Instead, I treated you with such hatred and force because I was afraid of what you might do. I wish I had given you more of a chance instead of treating you like a threat. You just couldn't take the risk, Megatron concluded. I know. Optimus lowered his head to his hands and felt guilty. So much was happening during that time. Humans were titans, the government was lying, and children were the enemy. I told you it's fine, Megatron sighed. It's done now. We don't need to talk about it. Yes we do, Optimus retorted. It's been so long. Megatron could hear the guilt and sadness in his voice, causing him to feel like scrap. He thought he could do this, but now he feels like he needs high-grade energon in order to carry this conversation out. This is what he wanted, but he was afraid to mess this up. There isn't much I can do now, Megatron admitted. I messed up, and I'm paying the price for it. Now Cybertron sees me as a war criminal, and that was because of my actions, not yours. Cybertron might see me as a savior, or a martyr, Optimus added, but I don't believe either of us can go back. We're relics of the past now, and we will never be able to see Cybertron's future. Megatron's shoulders slumped before glancing back at the humans. You could be around for this world's future. The humans here already see you as a savior and a friend. Meanwhile, I'm still feared by everyone simply because of my appearance. It would be nice to have my old form back. Like your old form was any less intimidating, Optimus retorted. At least I could recharge properly, Megatron countered. Optimus huffed at his response before sighing. Megatron, I need to say this now or I may not get another opportunity to. Megatron felt his spark stop for a moment, but he refused to look Optimus in the eye, keeping his attention to the party. I do not know if I can forgive you for what happened during the war, Optimus began. Megatron closed his eyes as he felt his spark shatter. There it was. There was the rejection and fear he was having. Optimus might not forgive him for what he's done. He deserves it, but that was the one thing he wanted more than ever. But it does bring me relief to know that I can trust you, Optimus admitted. Megatron opened his eyes and turned fully to the Prime, completely shocked by his answer. You trust me. You willingly helped out humans, and proven that you have no ill intention, Optimus explained. I understand you still do not like humans, but you were willing to put that aside and helped save what was left of humanity. Optimus placed a hand on his shoulder and gave Megatron a small smile. Thank you, Megatron. Megatron stared Optimus dead in the eye before looking down at the hand on his shoulder. This wasn't a twisted game created by Unicron or his hallucinations. Optimus actually trusted him. He tried so hard to contain his emotions, but he was struggling to do so. He lowered his head to the wood floor, placing his hand on the one on his shoulder. One. Megatron. I'm fine, Megatron cut off. I'm fine. One. Optimus, a voice shouted, causing Optimus to remove his hand from Megatron's shoulder. The two turned to see Hanji walking over to them with a cup of whiskey in hand. She placed it on the table before leaning over and sloppily waving. Hello, Tilda. Hanji sing-songed with a smile. Hi, Megzy Tilda. I'm going to kill you, Megatron hissed. Hanji, are you drunk? Optimus demanded. I am totally hammered. I'm gonna to have the worst hangover, but it's a party. Hanji shouted, what do you expect me to do? To control your urges, Megatron answered. Hanji pointed at him. You are shit. You are a shitty badass, and no one can take that away from you. Is it wrong to say this is an improvement from what she usually is? Megatron asked Optimus. I am not here for you, Bucketheed, Hanji declared. I'm here for the Prime. Come on. Join the party. Have a drink. The form is not designed for intakes, Optimus reminded. Then mingle with people, Hanji requested as she walked to him. Have some fun. Megadork won't do it cause he hates the little bugs. I am going to torture you later, Megatron declared, earning a glare from the Prime, mentally. Which shouldn't be hard. One. Optimus sighed as he stood up. Hanji, you need to sit down for a while. Mingle first. Hanji yelled as she grabbed Optimus' arm. The Prime yelped in surprise as Hanji managed to drag Optimus to the others. Megatron watched as Hanji dragged Optimus towards the party before looking down at his hands. He flexed the fingers, feeling the details and intricacies of the hollow form. He raised his head to the party to see the humans laughing and cheering. He noticed the children of the Survey Corps having some sort of relief and normality since the past week, and Optimus seemed more relaxed. Was this happiness? Was this joy? Was this an emotion he forgot about so long ago? Megatron huffed before smiling to himself, remembering Optimus' proclamation of trust. Well, he definitely felt something warm and fuzzy. Something a lot better than he was feeling than the last month. Megatron caught something out of the corner of his eyes and realized it was Prime's pet leaving the party. He wouldn't have taken any mind to it, but stopped when he noticed the prototype gun in the inside of his jacket. The boy intends to do something drastic, Megatron thought as he stood up. No one would have noticed him leaving the party. He just had to stop him from doing whatever he was thinking. Aaron exited the building and continued walking onward. He didn't have a destination, just someplace far away. He didn't want people knowing where he died. He didn't think anyone would care. Aaron stopped and found himself not surrounded by buildings, but by grass and trees and the crescent moon. This isn't a bad place, Aaron thought to himself before pulling out the pistol and firing one of the rounds at a tree. The gun still works, Aaron thought as he checked to see there were 3 bullets now. He closed the revolver and placed it on the side of his skull. He wanted to apologize to everyone for dragging humanity down, but he couldn't. They would have tried to stop him, saying that he has worth, when he really had none. Humanity deserved better, the Survey Corps deserved better, and Amin and Mikasa deserved better. Aaron felt tears stream down his face as he let out a whimper. He needed to do this. I didn't peg you as someone who would actually commit suicide, a voice said. Aaron's heart stopped as he looked behind him to see Megatron's hollow form with his arms crossed. He felt fear rise in him before aiming the gun at the ex-con. What are you doing? Aaron demanded. Stopping you, Megatron answered as he walked forward. Leave me alone, Aaron stuttered as he backed away. I'm not exactly given the option, am I? Megatron remarked. Aaron began to panic as an idea rose in his head. He aimed the gun at his temple once more, causing Megatron to stop in his tracks. Leave me alone, you monster, Aaron ordered. Like I haven't heard that one before, Megatron remarked with a hint of sass in his voice. I'm not playing your fucking game. Aaron shouted, leave or I'll shoot myself right now. You're going to do it whether I'm here or not, Megatron proclaimed, and if you're so insistent on death, I can give you a much more painful one at that. Do it. Aaron dared with a sadistic smile, see how fast Optimus jumps to the conclusion that you killed me. He would kill you on the spot. Megatron's face contorted into one of pure rage. He just might actually kill this boy, but he couldn't. He had to stop him, but how was he supposed to when he didn't even know how? Megatron had to abandon his usual style and personality, because it was clearly encouraging the boy to go on with the deed. But, just for safekeeping, he turned on the comm link so Optimus could hear the situation. I see you're bent on putting a bullet in your skull, but the thing that bugs me is why. Megatron demanded. Optimus sighed with relief as Hanji managed to finally sit down and continue to drink. He tried getting her to stop, but that only resulted in her hissing before weeping about the death of Mobilit. Optimus suddenly winced as he heard a ringing in his ear. He was about to turn off the comm, but he suddenly heard Megatron's voice. I see you're bent on putting a bullet in your skull, but the thing that bugs me is why. Megatron demanded. What was going on? Who was planning on killing himself? Why the fuck do you give a damn? Aaron shouted, you don't give a shit about humanity. Why do you want to stop me? Optimus felt his spark stopped as he looked around the party. Aaron wasn't here. Where was he? Where in the allspark was he? Optimus quickly excused himself from Hanji as he quickly searched for Amin and Mikasa. He found the two of them conversing with each other and smiling. "Where is Eren?" Optimus immediately asked as he walked towards them. "Isn't he here?" Mikasa questioned. "He said he wanted to go sleep," Armin told both of them. Optimus grew more anxious before making his way out of the party. Armin and Mikasa looked at each other before quickly following the Prime out. "Optimus, what's wrong? Where's Eren?" Mikasa exclaimed. "I don't know," Optimus answered, "but Megatron found out Eren wants to kill himself. He has a weapon on him right now." Armin gasped while Mikasa stopped in her tracks. The two immediately got over their shock and ran past Optimus. Optimus quickly followed them as they made their way to the exit of the building. "Well, there must be a good reason," Megatron proclaimed. "Do you really want to die alone? Without fulfilling your vendetta?" Eren grimaced at the thought before letting out a huff of laughter. "My vendetta was a fucking joke. It was built on a lie." "And why is that?" Megatron asked. "I'm not giving you the satisfaction," Eren hissed. "Satisfaction of what?" Megatron demanded, earning no response. "Answer the question or I take that gun from your hands. I'll pull the trigger. I'm a lot faster than that bullet." "Fuck you. Answer my question." Megatron shouted. "What could possibly compel you to want to die? What exactly would that do for your kind? What possible satisfaction would that bring me?" "You were right." Eren screamed. "You were fucking right, okay? I was never humanity's hope and my existence was a joke." Megatron took a small step back as Eren's arms fell to his side. "I took power that wasn't mine," Eren began as tears began to fall. "I couldn't use my powers correctly, letting my friends die. Thomas, Mina, Hans, Levi's squad, I couldn't do a damn thing. I put all of my friends in danger. I put humanity in danger, and wasn't even able to help figure out the secrets of the Titans. I ate my own father, and I wasn't strong enough to save my mother." Eren hung his head and covered his eyes with his hands, being mindful of where the gun was pointed. "You were right. I wasn't needed. I always ended up preventing humanity from moving forward. Armin and Mikasa worry about me too much, while Optimus is just wasting his time on me. I'm just some stupid kid and everything special about me came out of a fucking syringe. Historia won't take the power, so there's no point. There's no point in me having this power. I might as well just end my life since that would benefit humanity more than me being around." Eren continued to sob as he fell to his knees, unaware that Megatron was looking down at him in horror. Megatron shouldn't feel like this. He shouldn't feel guilty. He shouldn't feel sorry for the boy's pathetic actions. He wanted to see his fighting spirit broken. But now that he got it, he wanted nothing more than for the aching feeling to just stop. The boy wanted to die, and he was indirectly responsible for leading the boy to this point. By the Allspark, what had he done? He said he would turn away from actions like this, but instead he has some need to still relish in them. The boy may have been ignorant, but he still had a purpose. He felt he had meaning. Now, he was a soul that screamed in agony because he believed he didn't matter in the world. And it was his fault. Megatron was about to speak up, to tell him to give him the gun, but stopped when he noticed a hallucination of Unicron out of the corner of his eye. "You believe you'll be able to stop him?" Unicron questioned as he walked into full view. "You're the one responsible for destroying his mind." Megatron watched in fear as Unicron made his way towards a still sobbing Eren. "This is what I've been trying to prove to you," Unicron began. "No matter what you say or do, no matter how much you believe you have changed, or whether or not you help the Prime, you will always be a disgusting, pathetic being." Megatron felt like purging his insides as Unicron put his claws on Eren's shoulders. "Just look at this one," Unicron continued. "You broke his fighting spirit. You corrupted his mind, and now he wants to die. The one that reminds you of Orion would despise you forever, the female human that loves him would want you dead, and the prime would forsake you. He would hate you for the rest of your borrowed existence. You will be cast out once more. I know you hate me, and I know you hate humanity. Eren began as tears continued to fall. If you didn't appear, everything would have been fine. Unicron continued as he walked towards Megatron. But just let me end this, Eren begged, please. Now you'll watch as this child dies, Unicron declared as he put his claws on Megatron's shoulder. Just embrace the truth. From now until the end of time. Eren pulled the hammer of the pistol down and placed the pistol in his mouth. You will always be a monster, Unicron stated. Eren closed his eyes as he pulled the trigger. Optimus, Armin, and Mikasa heard a gunshot ring out as they exited the building. Eren! Mikasa screamed. Optimus turned off his comm. As the three ran to the source of the gunshot, Eren opened his eyes and looked down to see his arm twisted towards the ground. A small black patch was there where the gun was pointed, leaving a small trace of smoke. Eren looked up to see Megatron slightly panting in relief and realized he was the one that redirected the gun. He was alive, he wasn't able to kill himself. Now he was left at the hands of the former Decepticon. Megatron pulled Eren's arm upward, redirecting the gun to the sky and forcing Eren to look at him. How dare you, you ungrateful! Megatron stopped as he felt Eren trembling in his hand, turning away and holding his other hand out in self-defense. This was wrong, his method of provoking fear was wrong. He had to remind him of what he had, and what he could hold on to. You have no idea how lucky you are, Eren, Megatron declared. Eren stopped shaking and sharply turned his head to see Megatron's expression of anger and sadness. You have everything you could ever want, Megatron continued, a home, comrades, friends, and family. Humanity sees you as a hope for survival. Armin wishes to see the ocean with you. Mikasa has romantic feelings for you. You say that you're putting them through trouble now, but you would only put them through much more pain and suffering. But I can't even protect them, Eren retorted as tears began to well up. You don't ever take advice from me. Megatron exclaimed, I once had what you had, but I let the power get to my head and I'm paying a painful price for it. Cybertronians across the universe want me dead. I can never return home without the threat of being executed. The one I've been trying to make amends to won't even look me in the optics. I promised to bring about peace when I've brought about destruction. I have no home, no comrades, nothing. I can't even enjoy the mere idea of death without the idea of my soul being taken or fading to nothing. I could take that chance, I could say the pathetic nonsense you speak right now and end my life, but I still continue to move forward. This is the only option I have. You have more than one, and this shouldn't be one. Why? Eren questioned in fear, why are you telling me this? Why do you care? Understand that you make the energon inside me boil, Megatron proclaimed, but that doesn't mean I don't understand. Realizing the atrocities that I've committed, realizing that my legacy will be one of destruction, do you think that wouldn't drive me insane? That it wouldn't make me feel guilty? That thinking about it too much make me want to end it all? I am a monster. That is something I completely accept, and I welcome whatever punishment the universe puts in front of me. You are not. You're just a child with an unnecessary burden, with friends who love you and would be deeply saddened if you are gone. If you truly cared for their well-being, then you shouldn't put them through that. Eren watched in shock as Megatron got down on one knee. The ex-con lowered Eren's arm and loosened his grip on it, moving his hand towards Eren's own and firmly grasping it. Give me the gun, Megatron requested. Do not make a mistake that you will regret because you believe it will benefit others. There are still others that need you. Aaron looked Megatron in the eye, unable to tell if he was lying or not before looking down at the weapon in his hand. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough? You will struggle with this, Megatron declared. This is not something that will be easy, but if you're willing to take that first step, there will be others to help. And you will be able to live a life that is yours. The only thing I ask is that you don't pull the trigger. Do not make the same mistake I did, don't throw your life away. Aaron felt tears streaming down his face. What was he supposed to do? Should he give the gun to Megatron? Should he shoot himself? What would his friends do? What would Amin and Mikasa do? He would be hurting them. He lied to them about what he would do. They deserve better, but he didn't want to hurt them. He didn't want them to blame themselves for something that was his fault. It would be cruel. They needed him, and they still cared about his well-being. He couldn't do that to them. He couldn't run like a coward. The thought of killing himself didn't please him anymore. Aaron loosened his grip on the weapon, allowing Megatron to gently take it from his hand, almost as if taking it too quickly would cause him to change his mind. Aaron jolted as Megatron quickly stood up and fired the last bullets to the ground. When the ex-con realized it was empty, he threw it far away from the both of them. Aaron then watched as Megatron closed his eyes and fell backwards onto the ground. I'm tired, Megatron stated before covered his face with his hands. I'm just tired. And know that I contacted Optimus earlier. He should be here soon enough. Aaron turned away from Megatron and rubbed his lower arm. So, he knows. He most likely does, Megatron answered. Aaron merely sat down on the ground. He wasn't ready to face him. He wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. I'm sorry. Aaron's head snapped upward and looked directly at Megatron, who was still covering his face. Did he just? Before Aaron could respond, he felt some tackle him to the ground. He grunted as he tried to get up, but felt the person grab his face and force him to look her in the eyes. Mikasa? Aaron questioned in surprise as he realized who it was. Mikasa had tears coming down her face as she quickly brushed some of his hair aside. You're okay. You're okay. Aaron felt air leave his lungs as Mikasa hugged him tightly. He looked at her before noticing Amin running up to him with relief on his face. His friend got on the ground and hugged him as well. Aaron felt Amin shaking while something wet fell on his shoulder. They were here. His friends were here and they. Aaron felt tears fall down his face as he held on to the both of them, quietly sobbing. He kept on apologizing to the both of them while they continued crying. Meanwhile, Megatron lifted one of his hands and looked up to see Optimus staring down at him, holding out his hand. I'm going to deactivate the hollow form soon, Megatron informed. There's no point. Optimus retracted his hand before turning his attention to the three children. Thank you, Megatron. Thank you. Megatron sighed to himself as he closed his eyes. Year 1. Optimus noticed out of the corner of his eyes the hollow form disappearing before he walked over to the three and kneeling down. Let me take you three back, Optimus said. Aaron let go of his friends and looked at the Prime. Optimus, I'm not okay. I don't think. Aaron, that is fine, Optimus reassured. Whenever you are ready to discuss it, you can. I just wish for you to come back. Aaron looked Optimus in the eye before he began to cry again. I'm so sorry. You do not have to apologize, Optimus proclaimed. I'm just glad you are all right. Just, let us take you back. Aaron merely nodded his head. He'll be okay. He was going to be okay. Optimus kneeled down and placed Aaron on his back, giving him a piggyback ride. Aaron felt his tears dry and noticed Amin's head hanging low. He shifted his head on Optimus' back and saw that Mikasa was still crying and she tried to wipe them away. Eren shifted his head and felt shame. He might have been saved, but he did hurt the people he cared about, and he didn't know if he could make things right. Megatron continued to look down at his servos as he decided to rest on the outskirts of Wall Maria. He studied the textures and details of his digits as he thought back to what happened with the boy. He didn't have to save him, but he did. He kept on telling himself that he only saved him because it would gain Optimus' complete trust, but that would be a lie. He didn't think of Optimus at all in that moment. The only thing he saw was a crying soul. He only saw himself. That feeling of losing everything, realizing that his own purpose was a lie and how he lost his way, and how he hurt everyone. It destroyed him, and he nearly drove someone to kill himself. It was a human, a being lower than him, but it still made feel guilty. It made him feel shame. He promised himself he wouldn't do actions like this, but he nearly did. He almost tore away the friend from the only two beings that ever showed him any amount of respect. He almost destroyed everything. He hadn't changed at all. He was still a monster. Megatron fell to his knees as his claws gripped the dirt. He felt anger, shame, guilt, sadness, and agony. He felt so much anger he had a difficult time to process it into words. The only thing he was able to do was scream.
Well, that's the ending of that chapter. I do hope you enjoy this video. If you like to see more, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below. Until next time.